Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at. Back today with the 99 Dev Problem Show. Really looking forward to this episode. However, I feel like I say that every single time. So maybe it's just like I'm just eagerly excited to always do the show. But I always have amazing guests on. So today's guest is a dear friend of mine, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. So, Jeff, I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. And I think one of the reasons you're looking forward to all these shows is it's the human contact, right? You get to talk with people and have a nice conversation. I would always look forward to that. So I'm glad you had me here. Thank you so much.
Of
Uh,
course.
for those of you that may not know me, my name is Jeff Blankenburg. I have been in the DevRel business for quite a while, but I started out as a software developer like most of us. And I started speaking at user groups and conferences about the things that I was building. I thought they were cool and thought maybe other people would want to see them. And some folks from Microsoft kind of tapped me on the shoulder. This is way back in like '07, and said, "Hey, would you like to just do this full time?" And I said, "You want me to just build cool stuff and talk about it?" And they were like, "Yeah, that's a job here." And I was like, "That sounds like a job for me. That's cool." And so I did that for 9 years at Microsoft. And while I was there, they had this cool kind of concept of an innovation week where
Mm.
they wanted you to go work on some other product with some other team for a whole week in the summer. And I did that. And I found some folks from the hardware team and from some other adjacent places, including Xbox. There was someone working on the Cortana voice assistant.
Oh,
And so
wow.
we put together this commercial and a bunch of documentation and a prototype device around the idea of a device you could talk to and have it play music and add things to to-do list and whatever. And this was, I don't know, maybe 2011. And we took it to the lawyers and we said, we think we've got something cool here. Maybe we could get a patent or whatever. And a couple days later, they're like, no, no, no. This has no commercial viability. Nobody's going to want this. We're not even going to bother submitting it for patents. And I was like, okay, cool. You guys know better than I do. I guess that's great. And so, I spent another few years at Microsoft and went to a startup for a little while. And while I was at that startup, Amazon announced Alexa, and my head exploded. I just couldn't believe that the thing that I had thought about for years was finally like a real thing. And so I
Hmm.
reached out to some contacts I had at AWS, and I was like, I've got to work on this. I've been thinking about it for half a decade.
Oh, yeah.
Found my way in there and became the chief technical evangelist of Alexa. So I was the public face of Alexa for software developers for about 7 years. So anybody that's built for Alexa probably knows who I am, I would think at some point. But it was a really that is a highlight of my career, having an opportunity to think about how humans talk to computers and how computers talk to humans. It was great. And then I found a few other smatterings of things throughout the years since I left Amazon. But I'm currently looking, and so I know you and I will probably talk about the job market and all sorts of other things. But that's a little background on me.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay, so I didn't know that story. Like I knew about like your roots at Alexa and I knew your passion for that, but I didn't hear the story of like how you got into Microsoft and how that passion started. That is so cool. Like what an amazing opportunity to just be doing something that you love and all of a sudden someone comes in and they're like, "Hey, do you just want to get paid for this?"
Right.
Like
Right.
that's just beautiful.
It was pretty amazing. And I'll tell you, there was a guy named Josh Holmes, who's a good old friend of mine. He still works at Microsoft in Seattle, and he was one of the ones that pulled me aside. And so we were at a conference in Columbus, Ohio, where I live. And he goes, "Hey, I've got this talk. It's on this new technology, Silverlight. We're just kind of really getting it into the market. But I have a terrible headache. Is there any chance you just want to give this talk?" Now it was in 30 minutes, and I'd never seen the deck. And I was like, "Josh, this can't be real. You can't actually expect that I'm going to get up and talk about something I've never seen, let alone anyone else has ever seen." He goes, "It's kind of what the job is, kid." And I was like, wow. So that was kind of my first introduction to, you're going to have to learn fast and go quickly. Now he ended up finding someone else on his team that could do that, but it opened my eyes a lot to how quickly you need to kind of jump in and be able to adapt and learn.
I feel like that is to kind of like uncover. I got another question I want to ask, but just to kind of like uncover a little bit, right? Like that is sort of the root of DevRel is that you don't actually know. Like you wake up in the morning and you're like, okay, I'm going to clock in, I'm going to start working. And maybe you have plans of something you need to get done or two things you need to get done, but all of a sudden it's like, no, nope, I need to go get this done or this done, and this developer needs me, and they're on Twitter asking about this. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter forever. So, anyways, they're
Yeah.
on Twitter and they're asking about this, and they're over there, right? And it's you have to be able to just dive in and be ready for whatever that situation might bring you into.
Yep.
Wow.
Completely. And yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts about the job. People often ask, like, what's a week in developer relations look like? And I'm like, I've never had two of the same week in my whole life. Yeah. They're they're
Oh, so
always
true.
different and diverse and like, "Oh, today I'm gonna learn about how to build an LLM? Cool, let's go do that," or, whatever it happens to be. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's also it's a good muscle to have strengthened because as this technology world continues to change and as we think about how AI is doing things and how we're gonna have to continue to grow as developers to accommodate and use those technologies, being able to learn fast is a superpower.
Right, right. And to be able to like dive into sort of the different like technologies, right? And to have a passion. Like I think that is probably one of like the deepest roots that I had posted not that long ago, kind of ranting a little bit about developer relations. I did it on a Saturday, so I was hoping for low engagement, right? But it was like I've lost a lot of the technical skills that in the early days of DevRel were so powerful and so meaningful because when a developer comes in, they're building whatever they're building. And I don't always have the same context that they have, but I need to be able to dive in, sort of get my feet into that, right? And understand what they need so that I can help them get to that end result. And so it is really powerful when you can just jump in and find those opportunities.
Yes, agreed. And I think those technical skills are still wildly important. I think
Yep.
in order to have empathy for the developers that are building on the technology stack that you're talking about, but also to be able to be that, I like to use the term developer zero inside organizations.
Yes.
DevRel should be developer zero. The moment a feature is usable in whatever state it's in, we should be consuming and trying to understand how people are going to use it and what its best purpose should be.
Yeah, exactly. And then alongside of that, right, like helping create those resources and bringing those developers into that new opportunity or that new offering and improving everything along the way, right?
Right. Agreed.
I love it. Okay. So I could keep going down this path, but the one thing that I like to ask guests so that others get exposed to it is what is your education as it relates to getting into, being a developer, software engineer, sort of how did you originate into that career path?
Well, I took the obvious path. I got a college degree in psychology. Uh,
Oh, the obvious path.
no, my degree is in psychology, and my actual intention was to go be a psychologist. I got
Wow.
accepted to grad school, and that was the plan. But I got out of my undergrad and found a job as a software developer. I mean, at that point, if you could spell HTML, you could get a job as a developer.
True.
And I got in and found that I had a real passion for it. I was working for some
Mm.
small advertising agencies that were doing work for big companies like Burton Snowboards and Victoria's Secret and
Oh,
Ford
wow.
and stuff. So really kind of got hooked and said,
Mhm.
man, this is a lot more fun than school. I don't know if I have 4 to 6 more years in me of college. And so I didn't go back. I reached out to the school I got accepted to and said, hey, what's the offer look like? And they were, it's 2 years. And so you have 2 years to accept the offer to come into our grad program. And so I said, okay, well, I'll take a year and keep doing this.
Yeah.
And grew and loved it and said, nah, this is what I'm going to do. So I guess I have a minor in computer science. I should have known this in college, how much I love this stuff. But realistically, if you look at all the technology that I've built and used over my career, I'm almost entirely self-taught.
Yeah. Wow. I have to say though, I bet that I laugh a little bit because I feel like developer relations has a lot of psychology to it, right? And I mean that in that like we have to deeply understand our persona types, right? Those who are technologically savvy, our desire to solve problems and get into things. And it was funny because I was actually writing for a while and someone's like, you're like the developer psychologist. And I was like, well, that's a loaded label, but it's so true. Do you
It's
feel like what you learned, is applied and comes into like your day to day?
very much. I think
Mm,
there are ways to like when you engage with developers. I am a fantastic listener, and
mm,
sometimes they just want to be heard.
yes.
Sometimes, especially when you work for companies like Microsoft and Amazon, where people just want to, they're yelling at you, but they're really yelling at a product or a company or whatever it happens to be. And my ability to listen and empathize and understand, it goes a long way in thinking about what their approach is. I said once in a meeting at work that um, it is really easy to hate a company like Microsoft, but it is
Right.
surprisingly hard to hate me. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people that hate me. I'm sure there are, but
I
it's
doubt it, but
it's much harder to hate an individual, right? And so
yep.
I think that's one of the strengths of a good DevRel program is being able to put a human face on a technology and let people engage with that human and realize like, oh, it's not a bunch of monsters that work there. They're not here just, capitalism 101 trying to destroy our lives. They're like, these are people that really care and want to make a better product. And so
Yeah.
I think those things go a long way. But I think my background in psychology, really more than anything, has just been good training for how to listen, and
Mm.
how to understand what people are trying to communicate to you, because their words aren't always that, especially online.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, when we think about, right, of like the sort of the makeup of a developer, right? And it really is at the end of the day, like they'd rather go to their peer and say, "Hey, what tools are you using? What products are you using? How did you build that?" And get that from an actual human that they know that they can relate to, right? They don't want to go talk to a salesperson or a marketer or someone else. They want to get it from someone who is them that they can relate to. So I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, they're looking for authenticity, right? And that's hard to find in the business world for sure.
Yes.
Everybody's got a motive.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I feel like we could go so many different directions. Okay, so you were talking about that you were working on something, and then also you're in the job search. So, what does your day look like, these days as you're sort of diving into all of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mentioned this before we started the call, but um, I am currently interviewing with 9 different companies, which
So
is
many.
which is it's too many for sure. I don't know what the right number is, but 9 is too many. Uh, but it is, it's a curse of riches, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's good that I'm talking to 9 companies. I'm having a lot of interesting conversations, and things are progressing well with a number of them, but it's so much time.
Yeah.
And it's not just the time to interview, but you have to put on the smiley, shiny face, and you have to be able to have the real, meaningful conversations and tell the same stories that you've told over and over.
Yeah.
um, but I think the hardest part about interviewing today is, and I'll start with the recruiter side again. This is the empathy coming out of me. For recruiters, they put a job listing out and they get 3,000 responses.
So wild.
2,900 of them were auto-generated and fake, but they don't have a way to tell.
Yeah.
And so they've got to find ways to parse through this. They're using AI, they're using bot, they're doing anything they can to be like, is this even a real human? Is this person qualified? And
Yep.
so they really struggle there to even find the right people. And then
Right.
once they've narrowed that down, they're at the mercy of so many different voices. They have the hiring
Mhm.
manager, they have the finance team. There's a number of other aspects that go into how do they determine, like, and screen for the right people. So that being said, they're going through all of that with 15 or 20 roles or whatever. Like, it's a lot of work for them to just handle and manage. And then I'm sitting on my side saying, "Hey, we just talked yesterday. When's the next meeting?" And it's,
Right.
yeah, we'll get you. Like, we've got 100 other things on our plates too. And so it's I find it valuable to practice patience.
Mm.
It's slow, and while my bank account isn't dwindling yet, I can feel that's coming soon. And
Yep.
so, like, there's a I am much more motivated than they are. If they don't fill
Right.
for another month, it doesn't really harm them.
Right.
But if I have to wait another month or 3 months, like, that's a long time. And I've been looking now for just over 3 months, which is
Mm.
a long time. Now, thankfully, I had a severance from my last place, so that's been able to carry me through this. But it's still, like, it's a lot. And so I guess where I'm going with all of this is talking to 9 companies like this also means that I am a project manager for 9 companies. I have to reach out and say, "Hey, we talked. When can we put our next meeting on the books?" Uh,
Right.
I'm either pushing them to schedule the next meeting or tell me that they're not interested, because I
Right.
almost at this point it's good to know that they're not interested either.
Yep.
Um, but it's a lot, and it's weird. Like I said, I've been going for 3 months. It was really active early, and then there was about a 6 week window in the middle where almost nothing happened. I couldn't get a callback. But I don't know how much you want to get into this, but I have learned a few strategies for getting attention.
That's what I was literally just gonna ask you next, is like, what have you I have two parts, and I think let's dive into whatever you want to, but I think for me, I'd love to hear about how can your experience help others, but then on the other side, what trends are you seeing? Like, either from previous DevRel or even just job searching in general.
Yeah, I think this is just still true. I don't know that it's newly true. Folks that are hiring for DevRel have no idea what they want. Um,
Yep.
they
Agree.
want the most talented developer that is also the most capable project manager, that is also the most capable writer, that is also the most
Business strategist.
right, and that can command a stage at a huge conference, right? Like they want someone that can do all of those, and then they realize, oh wait, that doesn't exist. We have to rebalance this and think about it a little bit. And they always over-index on knowledge of their stack. They always say, well, we need somebody that knows more about our platform. We loved you. We loved having a good conversation with you, but we met some people that have more experience with whatever our technology happens to be.
Yep.
And it's weird to me because I feel like that's the thing that is the most easily learned.
Exactly.
All of the skills that you need from a person in this kind of role, I can, like, before I start the job, I'll have ramped up on whatever your thing is. But that's a very odd kind of paradigm that I've seen consistently.
Yep.
So that's one observation. The big thing for me though is about getting noticed and getting attention. My early start, I was fire and forget on 100 resumes a day. Like, let's just find every role that even seems like I would venture into program management, project management, developer relations. I didn't necessarily want to go back and be 40-hour a week developer.
Yep.
But there were a couple of roles at the right company. I might have considered that. And so,
Sure.
but it was just sending resume after resume after resume and hearing nothing. And I was unemployed slightly for a couple of months in 2023. And one of the first rejection emails I got was actually from a job I applied to in 2023, which was,
oh my gosh,
it was 2 years later. And they were like, hey, we're going with another candidate. I was like, yeah, it's been 2 years.
Thanks.
I'm aware that you didn't pick me. So that was interesting. But I think the thing that I found, and this has been consistently true, and that's why now, like, I'm talking to 9 companies, is because as you look at a role, you can kind of get a feel for where it lives in an organization. So, I know you've had some comments on this on LinkedIn recently, but is it in marketing? Is it in sales? Is it in product? Those are very different roles depending on where they live.
Oh yeah.
And I often feel like they should probably be a hybrid third pillar between marketing and product.
Yep.
Because they straddle that line heavily. Anyway, what I found was going on LinkedIn, searching the company, sorting through the people, and finding the person or people that are directly adjacent to that role. Might be the hiring. You're not sure for sure, but find the hiring manager, find the people that might be your peers, and literally just send them a connection request. I don't even put any text in it. It's just, hey, we should connect. Yep. And what I found is that about 90% of the time, they'll accept your connection.
Because you're probably connected to someone they know, which helps.
Yeah. Now, it's always like a second or a third level connection,
sure.
But I'm connected to somebody, and they can dig in, they can look at my background, and they can see that, like, I'm a legit person.
Yep.
But if they accept that connection now, let's have a conversation. Hey, thanks for accepting my connection. I just applied to this role. Is there anything you can share with me about what you guys are looking for? And oh my goodness, the response rate is incredible. Yeah, I'd be happy to spend 5 minutes chatting with you, or whatever. And it's worked remarkably well. And again, I'm not being manipulative or deceitful or anything. It's just very upfront. Hey, I'm interested in this role. I'd love to be a part of your team. What can you share with me about whatever it happens to be? You're
tenacious.
Yeah, that has dramatically improved you're getting an interview to a pretty extreme degree. And the time that I learned this trick was the last time that I was unemployed. I've become, since COVID, kind of an avid baseball card collector again. I was one as a kid, and during COVID, my wife said, "Hey, you have all those baseball cards from your childhood in our basement. Why don't you go through them? You have nothing else to do, nowhere to go." And I was like, "That's a good idea." So I started opening up all the boxes and finding all the loose cards that I haven't seen them in 30 years, and looked on eBay and started sorting and trying to feel what, like, the value for some of these things were. And then I discovered new cards, and I was like, wow, new cards are kind of cool. I'll buy some of those. And so then this is kind of snowballed, and my wife regrets her decision entirely. But the reason that I'm telling this story is because one of the things that I've observed as somebody that's been in the software business forever is that there is not really a good, useful tool anywhere on the internet for someone to track and manage their collection. I want to find a database of every card that's ever existed, and I want to be able to go in and mark the ones that I have and upload pictures of the cards that I have. Like, I want to collect them, but I want to have it online so I can show other people.
Yeah.
And so,
Like-minded people, right?
right. And so I didn't find anything of any use. So I started building. And I thought, you know what? I should just reach out to Topps. Topps is like the company that makes a lot of these sports cards.
Yep.
So I did what a smart person would do, right? I reached out to everybody that I could find at the C level and said,
Mm.
pitch you on this concept. Here's a like, I sent them a little PDF that I had created kind of describing what the project was. But it was basically a pitch to hire me, bring me in, and let me build this thing under your umbrella.
Ooh.
I didn't want to do it as a startup for a variety of reasons, but I felt like it really needs their name to really carry the weight that it has. And so I invited all of these C-level folks. And again, no notes in the LinkedIn connection. I just hit connect and hope for the best. And within an hour, I think there was 8 people. I think within an hour, 6 of them accepted.
That's incredible.
Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, there's no reason they should be accepting my connections. So then I started with the messaging as I described, and I didn't get a single reply. No one even engaged in the slightest. And I was like, well, that was a fun experiment. Okay, I guess that doesn't work the way that I thought it would. And so I kind of didn't think about it. And I kept building the tool just for myself, and was growing a little bit. And I got to like, I think there was 100,000 cards in there. It was a lot. It was a lot.
Wow.
And a couple months later, I was like, I got to try this again. Like I didn't get any connection there. So I went back to LinkedIn and I found all the director level folks. Out to them, because they probably would be the ones that would own and shepherd a project like this and
have a little more time.
Yeah. So all of a sudden I got 100% response rate from like 20 people.
Wow.
What is going on? And they were engaging and talking to me. And one of the common questions I got from these folks was, how do you know our CEO? How do you know our CTO? Like, and it was because my connection the first time that they all used that as validation that I was authentic and connected and engaged. And I was like, wow, there is magic in these connections that I hadn't really considered. And so that got me some meetings. I've had 3 or 4 meetings now with the CTO of Topps, which was bought by a company called Fanatics, about this project and kind of the progress I'm making and how I could use some help with getting data, because it's impossible to find that stuff all over the web. But it's been this really meaningful relationship that I've built with this guy because a couple of C-level folks 2 years ago accepted my connection request. So in this whole long story is send connections to people you want to be connected to and see what happens. You'd be surprised.
That is like such a beautiful story, because you're right? Like, if I do the same thing when I'm on LinkedIn, if I am trying to get somewhere, get some progress with something, I will look and see who's connected. And I look at that as sort of a validation, which honestly had me sort of second guessing my connections and who I accepted also. Cause it's like, if I'm giving that validity, like I probably should be a little more thorough with my connection requests, but it is really true. And that is like such a meaningful way to like go and actually create that, because like you said, now you're able to get those messages. Wow. That is such a great hint.
Yeah. So that has worked well for me. Nobody used that though. Like, I'm still looking for a job. So once I find then you guys can start using that.
That's awesome. But I feel like that, at least it's there, right? It's something that us developers, we just like to build stuff because we want to solve problems. And oftentimes it's problems that we personally have. So we go and build it. And then opportunities come out of that. Like the whole reason that I'm even a software engineer myself is because I got super good at Guitar Hero. I had my first child. He was the best baby ever. I was really young when we started having kids. I'm from a small town. He was the best baby ever. And I was like, I am literally bored. So I started playing Guitar Hero more because he was such a good kid. And I was on expert level. And I'm just like, I can't get any better because I have no one to push me. And so then I decided to build this Guitar Hero tournament, or community essentially, that we did tournaments, figured out PHP, figured out MySQL, took my little front end skills and applied these back end skills. And all of a sudden, like, they're like, hey, come and be a moderator. Here's some cool swag. Join what we're doing. And it's such a fun thing, right? Because as developers, we're just building something that we want to build because we personally want it. And then it turns into, or can turn into, these beautiful opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting how the industry continues to shape and pivot in the sports card world. But there's a company called Beckett who's been around forever, and they used to publish like a printed magazine that you got every month. It was just a price guide. You could flip through cards and be like, "Oh, that went up 10 cents this month," or whatever.
Oh, nice.
And I don't think they still make that publication, or if they do, it's the subscription's way down. But they have an online version of it, and there's a guy that works there that makes I'm sure he had more responsibilities than this, but he makes checklists every time a new set of cards comes out. He makes an Excel version of the checklist that is every card that's possible, and then they have variations and whatever.
Hmm.
But it's usually like a spreadsheet that has thousands of rows in it across like 5 or 6 tabs.
Right.
He was just let go from Beckett last week, and I'm
Ooh.
just watching in the Reddit groups and the Facebook groups and all the other things that I'm in. Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, the new set just launched on Wednesday," and they're like, "Why isn't Beckett's checklist available?" And it's like, "Oh, that's right, they got rid of that guy. Nobody's making those anymore." And I was like, "Wait a second, I could be that guy. Like this might be the opportunity to just kind of slide in and be like, hey, I make this stuff too. I've got spreadsheets and data and all the things." So it's an interesting kind of pivot time right now because theirs was kind of the industry standard for what a spreadsheet, a checklist should be, and
Right.
the stuff that I'm working on is significantly a leap above. But I'm just one guy, so like it takes me a lot longer.
Yeah. But it's that type of like passion and sort of just desire to get into something that we personally love, right?
Mhm.
That leads to something. Like I started building out, this is like super nerdy, but we have a farm now. And when you, I'm laughing because just wait till you hear it. When you have cattle, right, you want to ideally improve your herd. And so when you breed your cows, right, you want to breed them to a bull that's going to be better than the cow is or better than the last cow that they were bred to so that you get offspring that's going to be even more successful. So when I think this was probably about a year ago, I started using AI to do that. Like it was when sort of everything started coming out, ChatGPT, Claude, right, all the things. And I'm like, okay, there's all this data, all this information. I can't possibly go through every single bull profile and figure out who the best bull is. There's numerical data around it, but I actually have to sit there and look at all of them. So I started feeding them into like a project model, and eventually it was like, oh, here's the best bull for you. And I'm like, and it's
Right.
just because of this passion, right? This, I know I have the tech skills, but I'm having to do something that feels monotonous, right? And dig
Right.
through. And then all of a sudden it leads into something beautiful. So I ended up publishing it. And now there's a bunch of different dairy farms that are like, oh, we want to see your bull profiles, right? So that they can figure out which one of their cows is going to align best to the best bull. I know it's really entertaining, but it's like, it's just solving the problems that we have. And
Right.
it ends up turning into these beautiful opportunities that ideally it'd be great if we could find jobs that fall into these passion areas that we have, you know?
Totally agree. Well, I mean, I think everything comes down to either data or people. Uh,
Right.
and you've boiled that down pretty well to like, I have a bunch of data that can solve a bunch of problems for people. Let's go.
Exactly, exactly. You know, it's interesting. So Joe Casabona, he's actually been on the show for anyone if they want to go back and watch that episode. But he's a dear friend of mine, and I'm subscribed to his newsletter. And I got it today, and it was so enlightening because what he was actually sharing was like this whole AI age, right? And how are we going to have a job tomorrow? Are we going to be able to continue, right? But his whole email was basically about this idea of like you can't take out the human side of it, right? AI doesn't have what we have. It doesn't have the connections. It doesn't have this ability to, build these meaningful relationships. And I just, obviously, we all know that, right? But at the same time, it's like we still have sort of this fear around it. And I think it's really interesting that it's the same thing. It's like us as humans have decided that we want to get into something, and then we start to connect with others and bring that into something that's bigger.
Yeah.
It was just a really good email today. So I thought it really applied to what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
I don't know if it's hubris or ego or what, but when I look at AI, at least today's state of AI, I mean, I mean, more than anything, it's a giant hype engine, right? We have heard that it will solve all of the world's problems yesterday. And I feel like it's a really useful tool for me for a number of purposes,
For
writing
sure.
and like instead of me going out and having to find a tutorial on how to solve a specific problem in a specific technology, I can just be like, hey, how do I do this? Or a
Yep.
great example with this huge database of cards I'm building, by the way, it's a SQL server, but I'm estimating when I'm done, if I could ever be done, is like 500 million cards. Like
Holy cow. That's a lot of data.
that's how many cards have ever been made. And so there's a lot of times where I need to write a query or I need to add some new stuff or bring back a list of something and my query's slow. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, make this faster. And it's like, oh, add this index, do this thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, why didn't I even think to index that? Or like, there's so many, like, I know what I want to do better than,
Mhm.
but you get a little scattered. We talked about this earlier too. Like there's just so many things going on that you get a little scattered and you're like, but the query should work. oh, I didn't index that table. Okay, cool. Well, now this works a lot better. So that kind of stuff really stands out for me as real power. But I've seen the code it writes. It goes in circles.
Yep.
It'll solve a problem, and I'm like, no, I want to do this. Okay, here's iteration 2. It's a little bit different. By iteration 3, we're coming back and revisiting ideas that I dismissed on idea 1. And it's like, I get what you're trying to do, right? It's a prediction engine. It's all really just probability more than anything else. But it's getting better, and I like the way that it's able to help me. But I'm not terribly worried about it. We're replacing developers wholesale. I think the only way that really happens is we have a team of 20 developers. Now we're doing the work of 20 developers with 15 developers.
Yep.
I can see that. But you're not, I don't see a world where code is just being written.
I fully agree. I think at least in its current state, what I have attempted to build and work on has actually created more technical debt, and I've had to go back and like reassess where we started. But what I do think it's beautiful at is exactly what you said, right? Is being that rubber ducky. Like you already know what you want to build, and so you're like, okay, I can't think of all the things. Even though our brains are beautiful and we can think of a lot of things, it doesn't mean we can think of all the things. And so being able to say, hey, here's what I want to build, and maybe it spouts out some different ideas, and you're like, at least for me, I'm like, whoa, calm down. That's way farther than we need to go. Let's solve what's right in front of us, right? But being able to sort of look at that differently. And, for me, at least, I'm sure you can relate. It's like, I feel like being a software engineer before AI was all about like trying to solve a problem and either failing or succeeding. And then you're like back and forth and you're like, that didn't work, but this did. Great. I'm going to take that and run with it. And I feel like that failure process can happen much quicker with AI because it can help you get through that. And you don't actually have to like full blown build out the solution that would have failed in the end.
Exactly right. Yeah, I'm very much aligned with that.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Okay, so trends. Are there, I know you had shared that there are some, and I think, some of the, hold on, I'm trying to multitask here, talking about balance and all the things. We got a good chat going on. Very happy to see a lot of these folks in here. I think a couple of them you might know personally. Chris is the only one that I actually know their name. So nice to see you, Chris. This is good. I'm going to pop this in.
Yeah, there's another one active here. W. Giorgio. He's an old friend of mine from the Alexa days.
Love that.
Always in a lot of my live streams and stuff, so it's nice to see him.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. That is also really helpful too, is like being able to just like balance and go through different things all together while you're trying to build something. Have you, as you're building out sort of this card thing, right? You already talked about the indexing and whatever. Where did you start from scratch? Did you start with AI? Like, how'd you kind of get started on building that? What was your natural path to start to build it?
Story. So I think I start like every collector, and I'm like, oh, I'll just build a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet. Like, I'll start there, and I'll just have rows, and we'll go and we'll row and whatever. And then I said, oh, but I want to store images of my cards, and I was like, I'm not going to put those in a spreadsheet. That's gross, and it'll make the document so heavy. So I should probably store those somewhere else. But if I'm going to do that, like, is Excel really the best answer? Because it doesn't, like, there's a lot of, I've spent a lot of time in relational databases in my career. And so it just springs to me that like Excel, I'm duplicating all of this data over and over and over. Like, why not build some relationships and go? And so I started to experiment with a tool called Airtable.
Love Airtable.
Airtable is fantastic. You can make it behave deeply like a relational database. I've stretched it to its limits. I have the paid version of it, which I think costs like around $20 a month.
Yep.
And that was 50,000 records. And I was like, oh, 50,000. I don't have 50,000 cards, but forgetting that I'm also building the database of all the cards that exist.
Yep.
So that I can then build relationships to the cards that I have. And so I got to 50,000 and I started getting the warnings that were like, hey, you've exceeded the limit for this plan. And the next plan is like $200 a month, which I didn't want to jump into.
Yep.
So, but it didn't stop me from adding data. And I was like, oh, there's a real hard limit in here somewhere. I'll find it eventually. And so I kept going and I finally got to 90,000. And then it was like, you can't insert any more data anymore. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to work either because it's just going to be too expensive. And so I wonder how cheaply I can set up a SQL server. And so I went to Azure and I played with some settings and played around, and I'm paying $4.90 a month to run a full-blown SQL Server instance on Azure. And then I'm working on like an actual React-based kind of front end for all of this, but I wanted something fast to prototype and show the folks at Tops and other companies. And so I started using a tool called Retool. Have you used that?
I have. Yes, yes, yes. I feel like I've tried all of the AI and no code, low code tools lately.
Yeah, I mean, there's I will tell you, for a lot of, especially for internal apps, Retool is killer. Like
Mhm.
amazing. And so being able to set up simple interfaces into my database to let me add data and to be able to view and build reports and all sorts of other stuff has been really powerful. And what it's been for me is like a fast prototyping tool.
Mhm.
I want a screen that shows what your collection looks like. And so that's probably going to look like a data grid of some kind. But on top of that, I also want to show you like who's the player you collect the most, or
Mm.
cards do you have, or what's your collection worth, or like there's another other like statistics, right? So I can throw all that stuff together in 10 minutes in Retool, come pulling raw data right from my database, and kind of go there. And so that has, I think this is the like the back end, the data source. SQL is probably going to be the permanent solution for that. And
Yep.
then it becomes how quickly can I get this custom front end built out. And so I'm using Auth0 for my authentication. Like I've got to build users, and like there's so much else that goes into that before you can just like launch it to the world.
For
And
sure.
so where I think I'm probably going to start is with this checklist concept. I stumbled into cardchecklist.com, and so
Ooh.
I'm going to use that and try to like just publish the lists of all the sets, and then eventually kind of grow that to be, oh, by the way, you can keep track of all your cards here too.
That is so cool. You know what I think is really interesting about what you shared is like, so I pivoted my business back in April. And so I pivoted to actually bring in, because my massive with developers or wow, I swapped my words there. My network with developers is so massive. I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah.
I was like, this is my value prop, right? Like I can get a developer at just about any target persona to come in and share insights on something. And so I pivoted my business and been trying to build out sort of the MVP to really be able to allow for like companies, product companies for the most part, right? To be able to come in and say, hey, I want feedback from this type of a developer. I either want them to walk through a product or do an interview or whatever it might be. And I was struggling so much with these low code and no code tools. And you actually just shed light on something that is so beautiful. Like and one of my engineering friends told me this. I need to start my schema. I need to have all of my data set up first because
Mhm.
I'm trying to go in there and say, I want to do a thing where if I come in and say, sorry, kid hit my door. If I come in there and say, hey, I've got my database already, here's my data. I just need the views for this data and to be able to interact with it, it's going to be a lot faster because I'm still in that pain of like trying to figure out what is the right path to bring my MVP together. And that
Right.
is like
And
so smart.
for such a gigantic data project like I'm working on, just as
Yeah.
an example, like they'll make I'll just show you. So I have like
Ooh, I
this is
can't
a
wait.
card, right? And so it has a
Yep.
white border and it's got a guy on it with his name and there's information on the back. But the way that a lot of card manufacturers work now is that they created these things called parallels. And
Mm.
so in addition to that card, there's another one that white border that's around the outside, it's black. And there's another one where that white border is red. And the black one, they only made 50 of those. And on the back in like gold foil, they printed 34 out of 50 because you got the 34th one.
Oh.
And the red one, there's only 10 of those, right? It kind of
Ooh.
creates this like false scarcity. Um,
Like Pokemon cards.
totally like Pokemon cards, yeah. And so as a result of that, not only do I have to like source the original list of all 300 cards in the set, but I
Mm-hmm.
also need a list of all 300 of the black ones and all 300 of the red ones. And what I
Oh.
found pretty quickly was just using my database and writing queries, it was kind of a pain to have to like duplicate this stuff over and over. And I was writing all these custom queries to move stuff over because I have the way that I've structured it. Again, we're going big relational database. I have records for every player, for every team,
Mm.
for every card that they're on, for every set. Every set has subsets I call series. Like it just goes on and on. And so writing a query that duplicates all of that stuff into another copy was kind of
Mm-hmm.
so what I ended up doing was using Retool as a way to like I just have a duplicate button and it asks me what I want to call the new set and I'm done. Like I don't have to do any of that stuff, right? So it's not only the views for my prototype, but it's also like the administrative tools for
Yep.
manipulating my data. If I find a typo as I'm going through something, I can literally just click on the record in Retool, edit the data and hit save, and it puts it back in the database. Like that kind of stuff has gone a long way for me. It's really
Yeah.
sped me up.
I would agree. Oh man, now my brain is like going crazy on like how to position this from the data side. Cause honestly, like, and I knew that it was something I needed to do, right? Like I've got HubSpot that I've had like my entire developer career. So I have like so many like just random contacts in there, but I don't necessarily know, okay, what job are they at today? Like, what are they up to today? Do I have an active email for them? And I knew that that was a big part of the task that I needed to actually spend time on, was like bringing all that together. But if I did spend the time on that and I started with that, I think that would guide. I'm actually been trying Replit. Have you tried Replit?
I actually haven't. I mean, I'm
Okay.
aware of it, but I haven't used it.
Does Retool have the AI feature now? Because I think when I tried it, it didn't.
It does. So
Okay.
a little backstory on them, and I will never say a bad word about Retool. But when I left Amazon, I was leaving to go to Retool to help them with that exact problem. How do we
I
apply
did
it
not know that.
to designing their interfaces? So like someone can just type a couple of sentences and boom, they have a simple app. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the day before I was supposed to start, they had a hiring freeze, and my job disappeared.
Oh,
And
oh
so
man, and you love the tool. That's a bummer.
no, I was really pumped to go there. But it's also the only time I've ever heard of anyone getting 4 months severance from a company they never worked for.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
blew my mind. So I have
Good
nothing
on
against
them.
them. It's how business goes sometimes, but they did the right thing despite the circumstances, I guess.
Oh, what a blessing. That is amazing. I've actually heard a bit of like every company, right? There's been a bit of sort of churn and process and hiring freezes and, roles and whatever. And I had actually heard of a couple different DevRel people kind of have a little bit of some grumblings about their either reorg or hiring freeze or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, like when a company makes it right like that, I think that's what's more powerful. And often we don't get that information out there to be like, hey, Retool did right by me, right? And I think that that's what's good. Like that's the stuff we need to hear about is like what companies are doing the right thing, even in a bad situation.
Yes. Yeah, it was a total. Chris just said I remember that day, and I was like, that was a total bummer day for me because I was just like, well, now like I just left Amazon. I could have stayed. That would,
Oh,
it was a tough time then, but it's been an interesting journey since. So it's always worth it.
yeah. Man, that is hard, I suppose, like leaving a role. I mean, obviously like from your introduction, like we know that you loved working at Amazon and working on Alexa, and so that was a big leap.
Hmm. But I mean, it's okay. Like that's how careers go. There's ebbs and flows to it, and I'm looking forward to the next ebb.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it, man. Ebb and flow. I feel like that is just so relatable right now. There are so many people, like Chris, personally, someone that's in both of our networks, right? Like he's been looking for work for a while. And I saw that announcement last week and I was just like, hell yes, like this, yes, this. It's like celebrating those wins. But there's so many people who are still struggling. And I think that relatability of like, hey, we're all going through it. And this is just, it's a part of it, right? And like, there's a beautiful ending for everybody, but it's like we just have to get there and see that and maintain hope and faith, right?
Agreed. Very much agreed.
Okay, so besides Retool, are there any other tools, A, that you've been using most recently that you're really excited about, or B, that you've used on this project, obviously besides what you've shared, that you want to talk about? That's one of the questions I ask if we ever get to it is like, what tools are you using today? What do you love to use?
I mean, my primary tools aren't super interesting. I'm using SQL Management Studio for like the deeper database stuff, which Microsoft just deprecated, which was surprising.
That's a
Um,
bummer.
yeah, so I think they're moving all of the capabilities into VS Code, and it's already there.
Oh,
It's not
yeah.
the same, and it's not as good. Like even all the keystrokes have changed, and so that's annoying. But I get like why they would do that. But VS Code is primarily my IDE of choice. Um, ChatGPT has been my primary coding companion, but I
Hmm.
also spend time in GitHub Copilot. I also use Cursor from time to time. So I'm trying to figure out which one I like the best. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
there for a little bit. But it's weird how everybody has to like state like this is the AI tool I use now. And even within that, like if you say ChatGPT, people ask, well, which model? Like which one are you using? And I've never seen a worse naming convention than ChatGPT is using for their models. But it is what it is. But overall, I think that that's the bulk of my stack primarily. Uh, and then I'm doing the majority of my work in VS Code, and then Retool for prototyping.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. I know
Yeah.
people always say that. They're like, "Oh, my tools aren't that cool." And I was like, to other developers, they actually are because it's just more of that like trends, right? Sometimes we end up using tools for a while because we're like, it's what we adopted, it's what we're used to, it's what feels normal. The keystrokes are memorized, right? But then at the
Right.
same time, it's also like, I know it's not necessarily the best tool. So it's like we always have our ears out for what else can we be trying?
Yeah.
Did you like Cursor? Because like my friend swears by it and he's like, Tessa, use it more. And I'm like, I I have this love hate because I feel like it does too much and then I don't feel like I have enough control, if that makes sense. And obviously you can cut it back and control it, but I think that was sort of my complaint with Cursor was I was just like, you know, it's taking over and doing too much like we talked about before.
Yeah, agreed. So just to comment on Michael Eaton's comment that he just left there. He and I have known each other for 20 plus years. He just got laid off on Friday, but that
Oh.
might be the nicest thing he's ever said to me in my whole life. So I'm going to celebrate that. He and I are very rough on each other.
Ooh, I
Uh,
love that.
yeah, it's a good love-hate relationship, but that might be the nicest thing he's ever said. So
Oh.
back to the cursor question, though. Uh, I'm with you on that. I mean, one of the things that Cursor has is that there's two kinds of modes, right? There's like, hey, I'm going to get my hands dirty and I'm just going to go do a bunch of this stuff for you. And then
Yep.
there's more like the chatbot engagement interface, which is a lot more, hey, if you need me, I'm here and you can ask me questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the chatbot side, they have names, I just forget what they are. But the chatbot side is not enough. And the other side is, like you described, almost overbearing.
Yep.
Didn't need you to do all that. I just wanted this one thing fixed. And so it's like you just rewrote an entire page I've been working on. I didn't want all of that, right?
Yep.
So I think that's the trick. And I mean, I have to remember though that all of these AI companies are really pushing on the idea that they can do everything for you, and
Yeah.
that coding should be a real thing. And I'll tell you, I've tried to sit down and just like vibe code my way through something. It's not real. It's
No.
not like you end up with just this tangled mess of garbage that may or may not work. But I will say for things like, hey, I need to call this API, like a very commonly known API. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff goes a really long way because I didn't have to go look at their docs. I didn't have to go look at the API spec or whatever it happens to be. And honestly, I don't want to do that. And
Yep.
that's hard for me to say as someone that lives in developer relations because we think so hard about documentation and API specs and all the other stuff. But I think that there's something to be said for writing in a way that can be consumed by both.
Yes.
Having versions that can be understood by both. Because I've been saying this since early in my time at Alexa. We are going to have what I'm calling a data revolution.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much data today that is hidden behind a walled garden of some kind.
Yep.
And in order for AI to be successful, and in order for people in general to be able to be successful with AI, they need access to their data.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a human, I have a hard time getting to my health records. Like it's always behind 74 steps of passwords and confirmations that I don't remember. But I can think about, and I mentioned that I was at a startup in between Microsoft and Amazon. It was very focused on health and medical records.
Mm.
The idea of the concept of like one patient record. I mean, everybody's been to the doctor before, right? And so
Yep.
if multiple doctors, they all have a different version of you. They know what you've told them or what you've chosen to share with them, but they don't remember everything. And if like, if you're going to, I don't know, your eye doctor, you're not going to mention to them that you broke your arm when you're 7. That doesn't matter, but it might matter to a surgeon that's working on your arm later. And so the idea was to build a concept of like one patient record that exists, but it exists with you. You
Yep.
are the patient, own it. And when you want to go see a medical professional, you find that medical professional in the app and you choose the portions of your medical profile that are important to them. And they can even request and say, hey, these are the kinds of things I need. And you go, yep, you can have that stuff. Like, you don't need to know what I'm talking to my psychologist about. You don't need to know whatever other stuff may be in my medical record. And so I don't remember where I was going with this, but the idea that we can take that kind of control, I want to do that with everything.
Yes.
We are going to be in a world soon where every individual, I mean, everybody has a Gmail account and a or whatever, you're going to have an AI profile, a context ball of something, right? And at first, people are going to be like, I don't want anyone to know that much about me. But then they're going to see what AI can do when it has access to that knowledge
Mhm.
information. Again, it's nothing that's secure or private, but it's going to be able to know things about you, like your preferences. Like when you go to a restaurant, you have things you order.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be cool if when you made the reservation, it was like, oh, he's going to order this, or here's the 4 things I think you'd like, or but it can only do that if it knows things about you, and you have to kind
Yep.
of share that data. And so I think this data revolution is going to be about how do I as an individual own all of my data that right now everybody else owns. I mean, imagine
Yep.
if you could unleash AI on my full Facebook profile. Like I've been posting to Facebook for 20 years. It knows a lot of things about me, but nothing I wasn't willing to share with the public anyway.
Right.
So how do I give it that knowledge to understand what I'm into and what I like? I mean, I use ChatGPT a ton, and it knows what I'm working on. If I say, hey, I have another question about my database, it's like, oh, the baseball card one, right? Like it already knows, and it knows the schema, and like it already remembers all that stuff. But it has no idea that I golf a couple times a week. I don't talk about golf. It
Yep.
doesn't know that I have children or that I'm married or where, there's a lot of things that it doesn't know that may be beneficial in some future conversation. And
Yep.
so I'm very interested to see just how far we can take this kind of human context data bubble thing and turn that into something real that people want to have.
I agree. Oh, my as you started sharing that whole thing, oh, I just like every little light bulb was popping off because, as you know, we were supposed to chat on Friday and I woke up with a migraine that was so bad I couldn't even see. And so I'm like, why is it this bad? Long story short, I have a bunch of stuff that has happened in my medical history for 25 years, honestly, should have been caught when I was a teenager, like 16 or 17 years old. But because it was like I went to a chiropractor, then I went to a doctor, then I became adult, I moved somewhere else, and then I moved somewhere else again, then I moved a whole bunch of times. I ended up having sort of this path of what was really clear that I have an autoimmune disorder.
Oh,
But nobody caught it. I don't know yet, right? But I had this revelation bringing all my data together, trying to figure out why is this so bad? What is going on with me? Why for the last 2 years is my brain not functioning? I'm so depressed? There's just
right,
things going on. And long story short, I look back and was able to take every single symptom and every single event and be like, holy cow, I think I have whatever, right? And
right.
so now I can kind of chase that down. If I would have had all of that data to be able to release to my doctor when I lost a baby, seeing him for the very first time, oh, I have thyroid nodules. Oh, I have off thyroid levels. Oh, guess what? That's why you lost a baby. And if you try to have another one, you might get preeclampsia and almost die, which happened. And
Oh,
I'm thankful that it was able to be recovered. But all of those things could have been avoided had they had all the correct data, which granted they had all my medical records. But
sure,
why would an OBGYN start going through to figure out what's wrong with my thyroid, right? Just
exactly.
not something they're going to dig into. But if an AI model had access to that, they'd be able to elevate and say, haha, it looks like she might have something and this might have caused it. Like, oh man, I want to go work that startup because now that I'm going through this right now, I'm just in the cusp of it and I'm like, wow, how valuable to be able to save someone from years of pain if you're able to do that.
Right. And there are a lot of interesting places that are using AI in healthcare, but it's
Yeah,
to like look at an X-ray better than a doctor did, or
right.
to diagnose something that you may not have seen otherwise. And they're finding that it's better at finding. It's not that doctors are doing a bad job, but it's better at being able to diagnose based on because it's being objective, right? I hear
Yeah.
stories all the time about someone will come into the doctor and they'll say, "Hey, I'm having this problem," and the doctor will be like, "Well, if you lose 75 pounds, you'll be a lot better off." And it's like, I don't disagree. I should have, but that's not actually the cause of this thing, and you're not willing to look past that
Yep.
until like the weight falls off. And so, but there's a real problem underneath that people are missing out on.
I agree.
So
I
I
agree.
think there's a lot of opportunity there, especially in the healthcare space. But going all the way back to my degree in psychology, I will tell you I can diagnose one thing for you and for everybody else that's watching. We're all depressed because we're adults. That's it.
Adult life is hard.
It is
Screw being an
hard.
adult.
It doesn't relent. It is always just on top of you. Hey, don't forget, you could lose everything if you just do X, Y, or Z. Like it's yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it is great, right? You know,
Hmm.
it's funny because like my daughter, she's 9 and she's like I was the same way when I was younger. I was like, I want to experience all the world and I want it now. And she's like, I want to start doing all these things. And I'm like, girl, just be a kid, be innocent, don't care about those things, but you can't explain that to someone else until they're in it, right? And so it's something you can't realize that being an adult actually really sucks sometimes.
I mean, it's also amazing, right? You have adult money, you have the responsibilities that you choose in many cases, but
True.
yeah, there's and especially once you start getting into parenting and all the other stuff, right? Like there are a lot of things that pull you in directions that you probably would have not selected on your own. But it's also great. Like, you know, I love my kids to death, and I love having opportunities to share experiences with them. So it's not bad in any way. It's just different.
I agree with that. You're right. It's just hard, but I will say I wouldn't trade anything in the world for being a parent, which if I actually joked about this last night with my husband. I was like, man, 18-year-old Tessa would not be happy with 40-year-old Tessa. But it was because then I was like, I'm not having kids. I'm not getting married. I'm going to chase after my career. I'm going to change the world, blah, blah, blah. Right. I had these visions and I met my husband. And then it was like, oh no, I want to have your babies. And like here we are. And I'm so proud to be a mom, but I never thought it was something that I wanted. So I think, you know, there's a lot of beauty in being an adult too and being able to sort of
Yes.
step away from that. And like you said, right, psychology being the main thing that you wanted. And you're like, why did I not see that I wanted to do computer science? And it's just like we were immature and younger and we didn't know, right, that all those things came together to paint the beautiful picture of
Yeah.
where we would be in our adult life.
Totally right. I think it's crazy that you have to pick and potentially educate yourself on the thing you want to do for your whole life before you're 22.
Yeah.
No,
How?
my daughter's starting her senior year of college. She only changed her major once, which is good. And my son is starting his senior year in high school. And when I ask him, like, what do you want to do? He goes, man, I have no idea. Like, how am I supposed to know the answer to that question? And, you know, you try to guide him through. Do you like math? Do you like this? Do you like that? He's a very talented percussionist. And
Mm.
he's gotten into all of these kind of select groups that normally most people don't have access to. He's going to be marching in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in Macy's band,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
Super cool. So I have to go to New York and see the parade. That'll be awesome. Uh,
Yay.
but as a result of that, I talked to him like, what do you think about like going into music, going into education, something like that? And he goes, well, it just doesn't pay the way I want. I'm like, listen, I get that, but like you also want to love what you do, and so
Mhm.
it's not money's not everything. It's nice, but it's not everything.
Yes, I agree. Well, maybe there's like a root to his skills, right? Like why he is so good at what he does. Like there's something there that maybe he can utilize those skills and bring some music into it. I know my daughter, same person I was just chatting about, she wants to be a teacher and I was like, "Okay, I'll continue to support you for the rest of your life because we need beautiful teachers and she'd be a great teacher." But it's that same thing, right? Of like sometimes we don't chase after the things we want to do because there isn't that financial gain that we feel is so necessary, but I have to
Right.
say, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, honestly, teachers make a pretty good living. I mean, you're not going to make millions of dollars a year, but I'm not making millions of dollars a year.
You will have a happy life though if that's your
There's
passion.
lots of teachers that are making six figures, though. I think that's very respectable.
For sure, absolutely. But I think the root of it, right, is that if I have learned anything from the last year and a half since I got laid off myself, started my business, been through a lot of life, it's that I needed to see what mattered, right? And spending time with my kids and doing things that I love, being on my farm is like what I would love to do. So at this point in time, I'm like, I don't care how much I'm making as long as I can pay the bills and we can get the food on the table that we need to survive. And like that's what matters. And so I feel like kids today are more able to see what truly matters and then sort of reflect on that and move forward. At
Yeah,
least I think, anyways,
no,
which is beautiful.
I very much agree with you. Yeah, they have a much better picture of what living in society is like. I think a lot of
Yeah,
us are our age, even older, are very focused on themselves, and kids today are so empathetic to others, and they worry about the community, not just themselves, which is a great thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, on that note, um, where can folks find you?
Uh, my name is Jeff Blankenburg. You can literally find me everywhere with that name. That includes TikTok and LinkedIn and YouTube and just about anywhere else. And I have this shirt on. I noticed. I also run a tech conference, and so I have an event called Stir Trek You can find it at stirtrek.com. Don't confuse it with the TV show that I think was mildly popular for a few years. Uh, but it's a great tech conference. We hold it in a movie theater. It's the first Friday in May every year, so it's got some time till the next one. But we're always looking for people that are interested to speak, and obviously people that are going to attend. But it's usually 1,500 people or so that show up and have a good time for a day. We rent out a whole movie theater for the day. It's big screens. It's a lot of fun.
How did I not know about this?
I don't know. I've done a poor job of marketing in Texas, so maybe that's why.
No, that's not why. It's so hard. There's so much that goes through our feeds nowadays, right? And I think coming back to trends and whatever, I think, like many, I'm trying to sort of take out the noise and kind of stick to what matters. And so that's more of what it is. But I'm very glad that you told me because I would love to know about those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
I will definitely be checking out Stir Trek. Someone linked it. That's fabulous. There's a link in the chat over on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn as well to go find that. That is fabulous. Okay. Any final words before we wrap up today?
Oh, boy, I don't think so. I really appreciate the invite. I think I was problem like 17 or something in this series.
We got lots of problems. Honestly, I think I'm like you're maybe like the 35th or like somewhere between 35 and 40th episode. So we're like getting up to like those 99 problems for sure because each episode has more than one problem. So
Oh, absolutely. No, but I really appreciate you taking the time and inviting me out here. This has been great.
yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been lovely to get to know you deeper. Like we've been friends on the internet for so long, and so it's so nice to like hear about more of your story, hear about your family, hear about Star Trek that somehow I had no clue about. So this has been absolutely lovely. Thank you
Yes.
so much for coming on.
Thank you. Hopefully I'll talk to you
All
again
right.
soon.
Yes, of course, you absolutely will. All right, we will see everyone else from the show next time, which I think is currently Thursday.